The biggest confusion in the stock market is actually knowing what to buy. What stock should you invest in? What asset should you invest in? Now, everybody keep asking this question. Even experienced investors have this problem. So today's episode of Clockwise is going to be strictly for those kind of people. Those who are very confused in the market, those who want to know what to buy at every point in time. So we'll be telling you 5 assets you can invest in even as a new beginner. Like a new beginner in the stock market. Now, welcome to Clockwise. My name is Providence. And you know I don't do this alone. My investor and stock market analyst is actually here that will give us practical things we should do as newcomers in the Nigerian stock market or in any of the stock market. Now, with a resounding virtual round of applause, welcome Mr. Ganem. Welcome to Clockwise.
Thank you very much for having me.
I tell people it's not about you coming to the market. From last year, 2025, we're hearing come to the stock market. Everybody should invest in the stock market. Now, when they come to the market, what should they? The stock market is a big market. It's a mighty market. There are many stocks. There are many things to buy. You can actually say which should you buy. So I'd like us to talk to especially those that are new in the markets.
Okay. So speaking about the, thank you very much for having me once again. Speaking about the NGX, I'm going to speak to the NGX. I mean, we have other markets, the US stock market, we have it, but I'm going to speak to the NGX because it appears most of our listeners are looking about the NGX. The NGX, as a beginner, you should know that the NGX is composed of 13 sectors. And then you have 33 subsectors. Now, what that means is that you want to know what each of these sectors does, the companies that are in these sectors. You have to have an understanding. Otherwise, you won't even know what to do in the market. You have different names. You know, that's the first thing. The second thing, you should understand how investment works. How to set up your account. We have done a detailed walkthrough video. I mean, you can check on the channel. There's a detailed walkthrough video.
On Bamboo?
Yeah, on Bamboo, as well as a few other platforms. You should know how to set up your accounts before you begin to trade. Otherwise, you set up your account. You might set up an account. For example, if you want to trade foreign stocks, you cannot do Clockwise. You know, Clockwise allows you to do. You can do Nigerian mutual fund. You can do USD mutual fund, but you cannot pick stocks. If you want to do that, if you want to pick foreign stocks, you want to go to Bamboo. So you have to understand which platform you are signing up to and what those platforms provide. We have done a walkthrough video, so I'm not going into details of that. The next thing you should also understand as a beginner, you have to understand how much am I willing to invest in this market and understand. By the way, when we say these things, it looks as if people, they're just doing a disclaimer. That disclaimer is very important. You can literally lose everything in the market. You can lose 100% total capital disappearance
in the market.
In the market. So you ask yourself, what can I lose and feel comfortable? What can I lose and not contemplate suicide? That mental model is very important. And then for you to be able to be comfortable, you want to also understand that whatever you put into the market, you should have something that you live on. You don't put in everything, including what you need to live on in the market. Maybe you saw on TikTok that particular money did
just pump your money
2x or 3x. You say, what? Can you imagine? Someone saw Facebook. He said Facebook from 52 went to 128 in just 3 weeks. That means if I had put my money, put everything, I would have. How did you know?
You start seeing that in the coming days with MTN.
Yes, I mean, so you realize that you don't have to do that, because if you do that, you are setting up yourself for very serious because something will happen. What if the market goes down and not go up? Then you might be, because you need this money to live, you might even be forced to sell off at a loss and book that loss. So you have to really understand that before you even think of getting into the market. The other thing you should understand is you have to understand the time frame. Time frame that you're putting into the market. Sometimes when people come into the market, I just want to put in money and push it in 1 month.
Take our money.
You are setting up yourself for failure, especially for beginners. You should understand that making money in the stock market is a long-term thing. I talk to people about 5 to 10 years. Are you willing to put this for 5 to 10 years? If you're not willing, then I think you should not even go to in the first place, because we have what we call bear and bull markets. In the bear market, prices generally go lower. In the bull market, prices go up, go higher. So what if you buy and then the bear market starts? So you have to understand that.
Another thing we should
must
talk
have a long
about
time.
is that you see, we know the economy is very tight currently, and people just go into the stock market thinking that they want to make money. They don't have a vision.
Yeah.
They don't know what they want. They don't actually have what they want to achieve in the stock market.
Yes.
Now, what do you say about that?
You must have a goal. I can't say it enough. Before you invest, you make that investment. Apart from knowing what you want to invest in, but you must have a goal. At what point are you exiting the market? The reality is that if you're going to the market, you go to make money. But remember, any money that you see in that chart or on your balance,
It's not yours.
It's not yours until you click the sell button.
Yeah.
So
Or
you must
take profit.
which is essentially something. So you have to have that target. Am I looking at a 50% return on investment? If it's by 50%, I need to trim some position. I need to take profit. I need to book some profit, so that what you have booked as profit is what you can call your own.
Yeah.
What you have there is paper gains. It can go up, it can come down. So you must have a target. Is your target time bound or is it profit target? If it's time bound, that means, okay, for example, you could say, I'm looking at exiting this market in 5 years. So once it's 5 years, I'm going to trim my position. So that means you are going to go up and down, and it's possible. I mean, some people don't have that. You can say, okay, it's like a set and forget. I'm putting this out for the next 10 years. The market, historically, if you buy into strong names, historically, it's been proven that they will always go up and into the right. So you can say, okay, 10 years is my commitment, and then you put in for 10 years, and by 10 years you begin to think about trimming. You can even have, okay, for example, like me, I will say, okay, in the next, let's say in the next 15 years, my child should be ready to get into the university. Okay, so let me invest something so that in 10 years or in 15 years, I should be able to take out that investment and then sponsor my child. So you can have a project-based investment where you're looking at a timeline for a project and then you invest accordingly. So you need to have that understanding of when to enter the market and when to exit the market, and the criteria for exit.
It's actually good with forex trader if you observe. There's always take profit. There's always, do you understand?
Even for stocks.
No, I mean that the mentality is usually forex traders, they actually go to the market with the intention of.
But do you know that a lot of forex traders? Someone told me in a conversation that he lost 6 million naira. I said, "How did you lose 6 million naira?" He said he bought gold and gold. I said, and he blew his account. That means, and I asked him what was your stop loss. He said, I really don't do that stop loss. When you don't do stop loss in any trade at all, I tell you, your limit of risk is your stop. So if you tell me that you're a trader and you don't use stop loss, I tell you no, that's not the name you should call yourself. You call yourself a gambler. Because if you're a trader, you know that you are telling yourself, if the market goes beyond this point, because you don't control the market, if it goes beyond the point, if that means my thesis is not correct. If it's not correct, then I need to be out of this market. You look at technical stop and then so you have to do that. You have to be that disciplined. That's why I take out emotion from the market. If you go to the market with emotions, I see somebody is going to lose scandalously. But if you go to the market with a disciplined mindset, know that, okay, I'm going for this, this is my take profit, this is my stop loss, then once it happens, it's automatic. And that's why I tell you, don't put it first. Put the stop loss before you engage the buy button, so that you take out and never shift your stop. So you don't allow emotions to take. Okay, maybe it's going to turn at this point. Maybe no. Allow it. When you're stopped out, you're stopped out. That means your thesis for entering that market was not correct. That's what it is. So even for stocks, there should be a price point wherein you tell yourself, listen, I'm no longer interested in doing this anymore. Do you understand? So if you don't have that plan in place, then you are going to lose a lot from the market, and that will affect, that can ruin your account and even ruin your success.
Now, let's look at somebody that's just a newbie. Let's say, let me know, you came through hype. Maybe you want to invest in the stock market, and you came around, and the market is very wide. There are different commodities, different assets in the market. What will you advise a newbie to start with?
I would advise a newbie, don't try to chase a 10x. Go get diversified. That's number one. So you're looking at industry. I will look at the banking industry. I'll look at industrials. I'll look at consumables. I'll look at telecoms. Okay. Those, you see those first names, they are like sacrosanct to me. So for instance, let me start from even telecoms, as a matter of fact. telecoms, there are two behemoths in telecoms. You have MTN Nigeria and Airtel Nigeria, Airtel Africa. What I would look at would be MTN Nigeria. MTN Nigeria, I mean, they just released their numbers, 92.2 million subscribers. You have a company that made it's like printing money. So there are some things you note: strong cash flow, disciplined balance sheet, earnings growth, and then most importantly, dividend history. Those are the things you should look at for, because other investors are looking out for that.
Yeah.
You have to look at that and allow that to be your guiding principle. So in that case, MTN stands out very well. In terms of earnings growth, MTN has done a blowout quarter, a blowout half H1 2026. In terms of dividend, MTN is even paying 26 naira per share. That's like very impressive given the price. Then you have MTN. You have in terms of coverage, MTN is doing 51% of the total coverage in Nigeria, allowing Airtel, Glo, and 9Mobile to haggle for the rest, 49%. So MTN is a behemoth. You want to look at MTN. We look at their data revenue. It grew by such a humongous amount. So I see a company that, for me, MTN is not even a name that you should be looking at the next 5 years. You can afford to do MTN for the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, as a matter of fact, because as far as human beings are there, will continue to have. So MTN is the name for telecom space. The next sector I will be looking at is industrials. Industrials, because I mean, incidentally, Dangote just released its half-year earning, and we saw the numbers. The numbers were very impressive. Dangote I'm very thrilled by the African expansion and the revenue it is getting from the African wings, because what you should understand there is that means that you are not just investing in Dangote. You are not just investing in the largest, by the way, the largest company on the NGX, 17 trillion naira. That's the market capitalization of Dangote Cement. But you are investing in, you ready? An Pan-African play.
Yes. It's
a Pan-African industrial play. So that, as a beginner, should sit in your portfolio. I recommend not less than 10% of your portfolio should be in Dangote Cement. In fact, if you are to look at 5 companies, Dangote should occupy not less than 20% of your 20 to 25% of your.
He's the biggest
by market cap. In terms of and by the way, another thing you should know about Dangote is very generous when it comes to dividends. Last year, Dangote did 74% of its earnings going to shareholders. So that is a very excellent.
55 naira per interim dividend.
That is a very decent. In terms of, I'm not even about the number. I'm about the percentage. If you earn this, because there are some companies that they could earn 10 naira, and then they give the company their shareholders just 1 naira. Just 10% of the earnings. So, but Dangote did 74%. So you want to look at a company that rewards shareholders. You want to look at a company that's a behemoth in the sector. You want to look at a company whose earnings growth is so magnificent. MTN, for instance, last year, I'm just cycling back to MTN, and I'm going to tell you why I'm looking at tying Dangote in the same way. MTN did, you ready? 968% growth in terms of earnings growth last year. Think about that for a second. Now, this year, they did something even more humongous. The same thing applies to Dangote. Okay. Dangote is, when we talk about a growth machine, I call Dangote Dangote Cement a growth engine. So that is where you, as a beginner, want to pack your investment in, because if anything happens, remember, a beginner. Why I'm saying this for beginners is that a beginner cannot stomach 30% downdraft. Yeah. So don't go down someone will tell me, this company is already worth 17 trillion naira. Don't go down the risk of. Is it possible for you to get more insane returns if you go down the risk of? Yes. But again, remember, you can also get larger drawdowns if you add companies down the list. In fact, let me even emphasize, Bamboo Bamboo, for instance, I'm not promoting bamboo here, but I'm just giving you an example so you have an idea. Bamboo is one of the largest investment apps in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Bamboo restricts, if you want to do margin dates, if you want to take up margin date in Bamboo, they restrict, the only eligible names are in the NGX 30. The top 30 companies that are, on the NGX. So which Dangote and MTN are part of. So you want to look, and the reason why they are doing this is that they know that these names are the names that are in the radar of institutional investors, foreign portfolio investors, and they cannot collapse just like that. Okay, so that is why you as a beginner investor, you want to go into a name that will not give you such a drawdown that you begin to have high blood pressure, or you begin to allow your emotions to run wild, and then you sell at a loss. Yeah. So that's why Dangote, MTN for telecoms, Dangote for.
All right.
Then for the other one, I will go to consumables, of course. Consumables, in this regard, I will talk about Boa Foods.
Yes, somebody actually asked that question about Boa. I'd like you to actually lay more emphasis on.
Yes, Boa Foods. What I like about Boa Foods is what we call backward integration. It allows you it's a recipe for margin expansion. Margin expansion. Remember, one of the challenges that the food companies had was because they were so reliant on import, and I'm going to speak specifically about Nestle. Nestle even suffered this too. But when you are so reliant on import, what happens is that FX volatility is not your friend. That's why you saw them booking insane losses. But when you have a company that does a lot of backward integration, that actually, that is what I call they're building a resilient system that makes it immune from some of these macroeconomic shocks. Yeah. So Boa Foods is a behemoth in that regard. And by the way, you need to see the range of things. They are producing things that what we call staples, what Nigerians literally eat on a daily basis. Such companies, as far as human beings have not stopped, we don't have robots around here, as far as human beings have not stopped eating. By the way, the population of Nigeria will continue to rise. In fact, the projection is that by 2050, we should be north of 400 million. You know what that means? That's a huge market for food and consumer staples. So that's why for me, Boa Foods is one of the behemoth, one of the names I should be looking at. Boa Foods have performed very, very well. And again, they are not so import dependent. So not being import dependent means that they can afford to tap into, they can source locally. One. Number two, they have what we call pricing power, meaning that inflation is taking high. We expect it to continue to remain stubbornly high, unfortunately. Now, what that means is that they can afford to, because they're sourcing locally, they can price, they have a pricing power. That means they can pass on inflation to the consumers. And that means margin expansion remains on the front burner. The other thing is that Boa Foods also has a very decent cash flow. And then if you look at their cash flow statement, they are sitting on some decent cash. That also makes them immune from the high interest rate environment, because one of the challenges, especially with consumer staple names, is that when they have to borrow so much, you see their interest expense becomes so high, and so that trims their balance sheet, that trims whatever they have as earnings. So Boa Foods sits kind of immune from some of these macro headwinds. Okay.
The fourth one.
So the fourth one, that takes me to the banking sector.
I was actually expecting that
No. I mean, I'm actually looking at for a beginner investor. Okay. So the banking sector, of course, again, don't go down the risk curve. So stick to Zenith Bank as a beginner. Zenith Bank I'm saying this because investors, especially foreign portfolio investors, love Zenith Bank. In fact, if you know they can, in fact, if you ask a foreign portfolio investor, pick 3 banks, they will pick Zenith Bank, they will pick GTCO, and then they will pick maybe
First Bank.
First Bank because of what the $2 has done. Yeah. But if it comes down to 2, it's Zenith Bank and GTCO. Zenith Bank, I mean, four brokers actually came together and made recommendations of investments that people should look at, that investors should look at. Guess which name was on all 4 lists? Zenith Bank. So you want to look at, like they say, I said, swim with the whales, not against the whales. If you swim against the whale, you are going to be consumed. So if you are going to swim with the whales, Zenith Bank is a name to follow. So the banking stocks, please look at allocating to Zenith Bank, because I'm looking at we are looking at 5 names. I'm picking each from each sector. It will be a very wrong move for you to say, you pick the Fugas. Fugas is it not 5 names? It's 5 names. You pick all the Fugas. You are
anything happening to the banking sector.
Anything happening to the bank, your portfolio is gone.
You're gone.
So get into all. Is it possible for all the names? Yeah, in the bear market, all the names, but they are not going to go down so much, because remember, even if other sectors go down, Boa Foods, Nestle, those are what we call defensives. Consumer staples are defensives. They are not going to go down because people will still eat. So that's why we're mixing this up. So I've mentioned Zenith Bank. For the banking stock, please, you want to look at Zenith Bank. If you have something else, then you can look at GTCO, but Zenith Bank is the name for me.
Okay.
Then
the last one
that I will mention is, of course, energy space. But I'm going to say this: energy and agriculture. Like agriculture would be like an honorable mention, but energy space for me, because for starters, energy is we have seen what's been happening. We've seen the what we are expecting, the Dangote listing. In fact, by September of this year, by the way, they have filed for, they have formally filed, even though the exact date have not been mentioned, but we're looking at September. So energy would soon make up to 47% of the NGX. Energy sector. There is no way a particular sector will become so large in the NGX and you don't put it in your portfolio. So you want to allocate. Dangote has not listed yet. So we'll look at other energy names. The name that comes to me is Seplat.
Okay.
I know you might be thinking of Aradel.
I was thinking that you say Aradel.
It's also, but remember we're talking about a newbie, a beginner. Seplat, Aradel did such a sharp correction, which you saw. Seplat has not done that. I mean, I'm trying to put up a bunch of stocks that will not have such a sharp correction that an investor or a newbie will run for the hills. No, we want something that is very, 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 very stable. So, though Aradel, from a value point, Aradel is better than Seplat for me in terms of value. Meaning in terms of valuation, in terms of the price to earnings. I think Aradel is cheaper than Seplat. But because this person is a beginner and we don't want a lot of volatility in their portfolio, as you gain experience, you now understand how to pick some names, how to go the route of value. But for now, you want to stick to the top name. So Seplat, by the way, another reason I'm also picking Seplat is that for a newbie, I want you to gain exposure to something that will pay you in US dollars. Dividends is paid in US dollars. For
Seplat.
For Seplat. So, we've seen, you want to also hedge against devaluation of the Nigerian Naira. Even though the IMF has said that the fair value of the Nigerian Naira is 1,150. Naira is currently trading at 1,402. What that tells you is that Naira is currently undervalued. Is it possible for it to move up? Yes, it's possible. But the FX market is driven by a lot of things. I believe that possibility, that one might actually be in September, and September, because a lot of foreign portfolio investors will come in. The demand for the Naira will witness a very serious uptick, and that would actually help to push the Naira forward. So for me, Seplat is a name that actually allows a newbie to have some exposure to the US dollar. To have, of course, Dangote is coming in and also will pay in US dollar, so that also could be an option. But for now, it's unlisted. I'm talking about names that are listed now. Okay. I will look at Seplat in the energy space.
No, the honorable mention.
The honorable mention is for agriculture, Presco. Agriculture. No. Let's do Presco. If you look at the name, the number, Kumo just released his results. It was not as impressive as it could be. I think Presco is a name that I would lean more towards. Okay. So for a newbie, so could it be a value? Maybe, but in terms of performance, I think I would lean more towards Presco. So Presco, because listen, palm oil is staple across. And by the way, palm oil is not just the edible oil. Yeah. Palm oil is like the building block. It's like an essential raw material for pharmaceutical companies, for cosmetic companies, you name it. So and that industry is booming in Nigeria. That industry is growing. I mean, when you have a population growth, then you have the demand for medicine, the demand for for food. Increase. A lot of Nigerian delicacies need palm oil. So I think Presco is. That's why you've seen the price of palm oil has not even dropped.
Yeah.
Look at it.
It's still going up.
It's still going up. So which is something I had predicted. I said if you observe this year, the Harmattan season was very tiny, very small, and when you have a very short-lived Harmattan season, then it has a way of affecting palm oil production or oil palm fruiting, and that, of course, by extension, palm oil production. So, Presco is a name that I think you should add to your portfolio. In terms of percentages, I think I would lean so much towards. For the banking sector, I will give 20%. I will give 30% actually.
Okay.
For the telecom sector, I'll give 20%. For that is already 50% gone on two names. Then I would for the consumer step. So I've mentioned telecoms, I've mentioned banking. For the consumer step, for industrials, I'll give 20% definitely. That's 70% gone. Then I have two other sectors. I would do for the 30% that is left. I would do 15%. I would do another 20% for Boa Foods. And I have my reason for doing that. Then I'll do 10% for Seplat.
Okay.
The reason I'm doing that is that Seplat seems not to have really fledged at all. So I would do 10% for Seplat. Then I would do 20 because Boa Foods is it's actually there's a lot of activity going on there. Seplat has traded flat for some several weeks now. So I think I'll just leave 10% for Seplat. So that is how I'm going to shade if I were a beginner, if I was starting to.
Okay. No, since we're actually speaking to beginners today, and all those are just coming to the stock market, what would be your final advice you actually made to advise them?
Okay, so my final advice would be, please don't allow emotion. Trade from an informed point of view.
Yeah.
Don't allow emotions to override what your decision making. Have a target. When you're getting to the market, you must have a target. At what point do I look to exit this name? The other thing is, don't take profit because you've seen a little uptick. You've stayed, maybe your portfolio has been red. The moment it becomes green, you want to take profit. Don't do that. Let me tell you something. When for most of the apps on the Nigerian, the NGX, for most of the trading apps, when you are depositing, there's a charge. There's a fee for depositing.
You're withdrawing.
When you are, no, I'm not done yet. When you are depositing, there's a fee. When you open a trade, there's a fee. Some 1.4%. Some. When you close a position or sell, you are another 1.4%. When you withdraw your profit, you pay. So you now realize that if you keep on doing this, if you keep on any little growth, maybe you are already doing, maybe your portfolio went up by 5% and you sell. Look at what you have essentially done is 1.5, 1.5, that is 3%, plus let's say 0.25 apiece, that is another 0.5%. That is 3.5%, that is what you have lost. So if you just sold for 5% gain, and if you are lucky to sell at that price, because sometimes for liquidity reasons you might see 5% in your portfolio. By the time you sell, the selling price brings it down to maybe 4% or 4.5%. If it is 4% and you're already paying in fees, you're already paying 3.5%. So you ended up just doing 0.5%. That's why we say don't be in a hurry to sell. What you do is you buy and leave it for long term. If you have, for some brokers from some platforms now, they allow you to borrow against, there's what you call margin debt. You can borrow against your holdings. But like I told you, some of the platforms really would insist that you borrow the only names that are available that are eligible for the borrow are names that are in the NGX 30. So you can borrow against this. I think we were going to do a deep dive on what we call the buy, borrow, die strategy.
Yeah.
So you understand how we here on Clockwise we do. We don't just go, we need money, we just go and sell our position. We actually borrow against it so that we don't trigger some
I think that's in-depth enough for anybody to actually follow practically. Thank you very much for coming. You've done justice to it.
You're welcome.
All right. On that note, we'll come to the end of today's episode of Clockwise. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and also put on the notification bell on this channel because of the amazing content. Now, we're actually organizing a training for anybody that want to learn about stock market or how to analyze the market yourself. Yeah, do it yourself. You want to know how to understand how to analyze the market yourself, what you should be looking for in the market. Now, the training will start on the 10th of August. And if you want to actually participate, then there's a link. You go to our profile page, you see our Telegram link, and it will take you to our Telegram community where you can actually have more information about the upcoming class that will begin on the 10th of August. Now, it will be an experience you've never had before. It will be a class you've never seen before. So I started calling it master class, but whatever you want to call it, it's going to be an experience you always like. Now, there's a link on our profile page. Just go there now, a Telegram link, and it will lead you to our Telegram community where you see all information you want to know and also have close conversation with us. My name is Providence, and I'll see you again.